Welcome back. We'll begin this segment in the U.S., where the U.S. House Republicans on Thursday passed a bill to cut taxes on businesses and individuals. That's the biggest step yet in the GOP's effort to alter the country's tax system. Jill Maladrino, my colleague in New York, is on standby to give us details on this. Good morning, Jill. Is there hope for this bill?
Well, the House was expected to get the vote through by Thanksgiving, so getting it done a bit early could be interpreted as a good sign, and stocks clearly reflected that. That said, tax reform is never going to be that simple or easy. The House and Senate plans are going to be substantially different and require reconciliation, and that reconciled plan will still have to be approved. But let's take a look at the stocks that benefit should the bill get passed and make it to President Trump's desk. Overall, companies that generate the most revenue domestically, namely small cap stocks, tend to pay higher effective tax rates. And with corporate tax reform a key tenet of President Trump's presidential campaign, it's no surprise that we saw the Russell 2000 index spike following his election victory, as well as in early September when a government spending bill was passed that paved the way for Republican lawmakers to focus on their pursuit of tax reform.
Now, we saw the stocks, that the stocks were rallying even before the vote got passed. What was driving the stocks?
Well, that's right, and I think that's what's key here, because they were rallying on fundamental reasons. Walmart, a Dow component, they blew away earnings and even performed well with the online business, sending the stock to all-time highs. The tech sector, which has been outperforming all year, spiked on Cisco and NTAP, reports that sent the NASDAQ comp to new all-time highs. Other stocks benefiting were from earnings beats were Smuckers and SPB, which also lifted consumer staples, and Restoration Hardware also helped stocks related to housing.
Now, how come there was a lot of chatter in the high-yield markets this week?
Well, equity markets saw some weakness earlier in the week, which may be a sign that they are starting to agree with the message that the high-yield bond market is sending. However, the overall breadth of the high-yield pullback remains narrow at this point, which may indicate that concerns are tied to more directly to specific companies or industries rather than the economy as a whole. The moves remain small by historical standards and may be at least partially attributable to profit-taking after a strong year of performance. But in today's low volatility world markets, we're really watching for signs that cracks may be developing via the high-yield bond market.
Well, Jill, your day is just starting, so I got to let you go.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the weekend. And in Kenya, the Airways narrowed its pre-tax loss to 3.77 billion shillings in the first half ended September. The airline, part owned by Air France-KLM, completed a $2 billion debt restructuring this week, converting some loans into equity and adjusting the terms of others to reduce pressure on its cash flow. The company's operating profit rose 52% during the period from a year earlier to 1.44 billion shillings. Kenya Airways shares were suspended from trading on Wednesday for 2 weeks to create room for listing of the new shares stemming from the restructuring. And Airbus has secured a memorandum of understanding from Air Senegal to buy 2 A330 new jets. The agreement was reached on the final day of the week-long biennial Dubai Air Show, which ended on Thursday. Tunisia's economy growth remained stable at 2.1% year-on-year in third quarter. The growth was also 2.1% in the third quarter last year. Figures from the Statistics Institute showed that the growth in the first 9 months of 2017 was to 1.9%. Tunisia is targeting GDP growth of 3% next year, compared with an expected 2.5% this year. It also aims to cut its budget deficit to 4.9% of gross domestic product in 2018, down from about 6% expected in 2017. And Hilton Worldwide aims to increase the number of hotel rooms it manages in Egypt by 40% by the end of 2022. That's according to the Vice President for the North Africa region. The U.S. company, which runs thousands of hotels around the world and manages 17 hotels in Egypt, aims to add 2,500 rooms and take on 7 more projects in the North African country by 2022. Egypt's tourism industry, one of the country's main sources of foreign exchange and employer of millions of Egyptians, has suffered since a 2011 uprising but has picked up in recent months amid government efforts to restore stability and revive the industry. A flotation of the country's currency last year, which cut the Egyptian pound's value by half, has helped to lift the tourism market after political turmoil and two plane crashes left its resorts nearly empty. And we close the show in Libya, where, of course, life there seemed to be desperate for some of the families as they are selling jewelries for scarce banknotes as the dinar rapidly loses value and inflation is estimated at about 25 to 30%. Let's watch this.
Libya's currency has slipped to new record lows on the black market, forcing some to sell jewelry or foreign currency savings to make ends meet. The country managed to lift oil production this year to about 1 million barrels a day, but output is stuck well below levels it was pumping before the 2011 uprising. The drop in the value of the currency has accelerated inflation and hampered medical supplies to hospitals, forcing families to take unusual measures.
Families have started flocking here in large numbers as a result of the circumstances that we all know, resulting from a decline in liquidity of their personal finances, forcing them to sell their gold. Most families come from Tripoli and other neighboring cities.
With inflation estimated at 25 to 30%, even salaries that are delivered are not enough to pay bills.
I can't afford to cover my family's needs currently. It's impossible for all Libyans to be able to afford to cover their family's economic needs, even if their financial situation was good. Even if someone owns a company or works as a businessman, they all have problems. Honestly, for anyone who makes a good living available to their family, it's very difficult at the moment.
The dinar has fallen 200% on the parallel market since early last year. The crisis has worsened as Libyans who often cannot access salaries for months have lost trust in banks, preferring to keep money at home.
Based on the current economic situation, the outlook is very dim. When it comes to dealing with the citizens, the amount of money we get, we try to divide as much as we can and make funds available between all existing accounts. The government is so far unable to provide any solutions that benefits the banks or benefits the citizen. Honestly, it is not a normal situation.
The UN has estimated that about 1.3 million people in Libya were in need of humanitarian assistance this year.
And with that story from Libya, we wrap up today's edition of the program and, of course, for the week. Thank you very much for being part of it. I'm Chimize Obi. Welcome.